Flashpoint will cost you about $32 retail. Online, however, you can find it for as low as $24. When you open Flashpoint, you'll find 33 fire markers, 24 damage cubes, 24 hotspot markers, 18 point of interest markers, 6 hazmat markers, 3 heal tokens, 9 door tokens, 21 action tokens, 3 vehicle markers, 6 firefighter figures and associated color cards, 8 different roll cards, 4 reference cards, a D6, a D8, a sizable double-sided game board, and a rulebook. The various tokens are of nice quality and feel great to handle, holding up surprisingly well after multiple playthroughs. Each are distinct visually, making it easy to tell the difference at a quick glance. The damage cubes are chunky and clearly distinguish themselves due to their shape and texture, which is nice considering that they change the board's landscape and act as one of the failure conditions. The dice and figures are nothing special, serving their purpose and working well considering how frequently they are used. The color cards feel slightly silly as it only helps to indicate who is playing what color, but it's a nice addition. The roll cards and reference cards are sizable, similar to those in Citadels or Masquerade, and clearly illustrate the differences inherent to the role, albeit in rather small text. The board is surprisingly colorful considering the theme, and each side has a different enough building layout to allow for some variety. The rulebook, while it reads easily enough, splits info between a beginner section and a veteran section. What makes this problematic is trying to find the info you're looking for when skimming the text for clarifications. Because you aren't always sure what section the info applies to, it makes it somewhat annoying to find the section pertinent to your question. The game has no insert, but surprisingly, it doesn't really need it. Everything fits in the box incredibly well, with the box and rulebook being form-fit to the box size. In Flashpoint, players are tasked with saving at least 7 victims of the fire. The moment that this goal is achieved, the firefighters win. Players must do this while staving off the fire, making sure the building doesn't collapse on them, and making sure that too many victims don't die before their goal is accomplished. After a player is determined to go first, players will take their turns in clockwise order, completing their turn in 2 phases, the action phase and the fire phase. The action phase sees players using as many of their action points as they would like to complete various tasks, such as moving, opening doors, putting out fires, carrying victims or hazmats, cutting down walls, and activating the ambulance or fire truck. If players have any points left over at the end of their turn, they can save them, carrying them over to future turns. After this, players roll the dice for the fire phase to see where new damage occurs. Depending on the space in question, players may add smoke, fire, or an explosion, making their goal that much more difficult to accomplish.
Roll the dice, Billy.
Billy save the first person.
5, 4,
5.
So now roll again, because that's a flare-up, so we're going to get a new flare-up spot. 4, 2. Wow, it's another flare-up. So that explodes real quick, because that only has a flare-up on
Billy
it.
has the worst luck.
And then a fire. Oh, yep. And now roll again, Billy, please.
3, 8.
Thank you, Billy. And now that gets a hotspot marker.
Hazmats or already burning areas can cause explosions, flare-ups will result in multiple rolls on a player's turn, and damage to walls may make openings for fire to spread through. While there are various specifics and details involving certain events, players will continue moving through the house looking for points of interest. When reaching them, flipping the token will determine whether they found a person or not.
So he moves in and he checks his body. And
Billy, what is wrong with you? That is clearly not a human being. I would know. Oh, you know what?
Once they have found a victim, players must move that victim to the ambulance in order to save them from the fire. If a victim dies or a point of interest reveals nothing, players will roll to place a new point of interest after they have rolled for the fire. Play continues until either players have successfully saved 7 people, or the building collapses due to running out of a particular token, such as the wall tokens and the fire tokens, or if 4 victims have perished, which will likely take about 30 to 45 minutes. So Flashpoint is definitely a fairly basic co-op game, but in that way it's very easily accessible to a lot of players. This is definitely feels like a beginner's first co-op game, and in that way it can be very easily picked up by just about anyone. There are those small details in terms of what you may do in certain scenarios when fire crops off in a certain space, but overall it's a very straightforward game. And the co-op aspect of it definitely lends itself to this game in a big way. This can easily be a way to introduce players to that genre in a very quick and easily accessible manner. The player powers in particular add a lot to the game in terms of how players are going to react to it. Having each player be able to do something particularly well makes everyone feel unique and exciting in their own way, giving each player something special to do. That being said, Flashpoint is definitely one of the weaker co-op games that I've run into in a long time, and a large portion of this just has to do with how mechanical the game can feel. Every turn feels like very straightforward and obvious in terms of what you're going to do. There's never too much decision making or questioning. Once the game is set up and you start moving, it's very obvious what you need to do on your turn. And so this game is very light in terms of decisions, not just because of everything being very obvious, but because of the dice rolling determining how easy or difficult this game will be. It doesn't necessarily feel like a fair or involved game. Also, the theme, while it makes sense from a gameplay standpoint, feels very pasted on. It never feels like you're firefighters saving people, and I think that has a lot to do with the mechanical nature of the game, because everything feels so pre-scripted and methodical and automatic. The theme kind of wears away and feels less involving or enjoyable. The last thing I would have to say is that though there are a few choices, occasionally you will have a choice of something to do, but when that happens, the likelihood is there is going to be an alpha gamer in this game that sort of tries to take that over, because there is no hidden information, there's no cards in your hands. Everything you need to know is on that board, and so alpha gamers can very easily just try and take over the game, which, is a difficulty in any co-op game, but Flashpoint in particular can feel like there are a lot of people who are trying to sort of take control of the situation. And depending on your play group, you may enjoy that or not enjoy that, whatever, but it is something to note about this one in particular. There is nothing standing in the way of someone just taking over and making all of the decisions. Which for a new player can be good because it'll teach them different strategies, but that all depends on your group and what you prefer. Flashpoint, I can only really recommend this to newer players who are looking to get into the co-op genre as a whole. I remember this was one of my earliest co-op games, and while it's a fine game, it's certainly not one that I'm looking to keep in my collection anymore. It's an okay game. In terms of the price, though, this game is fantastic. You get so much in the box, all those little tokens and bits and pieces, and the minifigs even. They may be cheap minifigs, but the fact that you get any minifigs in this game is pretty awesome. The board being double-sided and the chunky wall damage tokens. There's so much in this game. So if you are going to pick up this game, you are definitely getting your money's worth for what's in that box. But it all comes down to whether it's worth your time or not. And that largely will be determined by your experience with board gaming as a whole, particularly co-op games. So that's my opinion on Flashpoint. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw here. And check us out on Facebook or Games on Tape if you haven't already. Thank you so much for taking the time for checking us out. And I'm really enjoying what's going on with the show. I'm looking forward to a lot of the games that I have planned moving forward. But until then, I'll see y'all next week.